The news keeps coming. More information about Absolute Batman has been provided by the creative team of this comic, and it looks like this Batman is truly more intense. We'll have a Batman that's more violent than Frank Miller's Dark Knight, and alongside that, we will also see the Batmobile making an appearance, completely different versions of villains, and we'll also discuss the image of Batman severing a criminal's hand, which turned out to be one of the biggest controversies in comics last week. Stay with me in this video until the end to keep up with all the details. Welcome to Comic Chronicles. Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta recently did interviews with several pop culture websites, and in today's video, we've gathered some of the statements made to AIPT Comics and Screen Rant. So go ahead and give the video an absolute bat like and your absolute bat subscription here on the channel. Be part of this community of nerds who love superheroes and continues to grow here on YouTube. Be our subscriber and don't miss any news about Batman and DC. Thank you so much, and let's get straight to the point. Starting with how violent this Batman is, by looking at the new previews that have been released, it is already possible to notice that violence is very present in Absolute Batman. Scott Snyder, the comics writer, talked a bit more about this way of fighting crime that this new Dark Knight employs, and according to the writer, he couldn't go around the world and train. There's no Henri Duckert for him, no League of Assassins. For him here, it's like he's got to do it local. He's MMA. Everything is resourceful. Having to be a guerrilla fighter. Having to be somebody who has stash houses, all of it. This Batman is going to be really intense. Although Snyder mentioned that Batman would still have his moral code, we can see that he is a much more extreme Batman. He came from Crime Alley, but the stories won't be about a poor Batman against rich villains. It's going to be something quite different, according to the author. This could be interesting as it distances itself significantly from the main continuity Batman that we are used to following. When asked about the controversial symbol and costume of Batman, Nick Dragotta, the artist on the title, said the following: "We drew upon bats for inspiration. When you read the story, I think we're going to reinforce what I just said. The idea was this wouldn't be a new Batman in look but in function. And what's interesting is that everyone is now talking about how different he looks. It really informed giving him that new feel. It all goes back to story and who this Bruce Wayne is in every aspect of his costume. It's not just a utility belt anymore. It's a utility cowl or a utility suit cape. Everything's usable. It's a bigger Batman. It's a bigger Bruce." As an artist and a designer, I thought about the practical nature of the symbol and who this character is. And first and foremost, that symbol was for protection. So it's going to protect his vitals. It also acts as other tools that you'll see in the issue. The idea, too, is just to get away from the Baroque, you know, the Batman '89 and how Baroque it is with all the curves. When you see our story, that just doesn't fit. Such a massive guy carrying his emblem is also an axe, so carrying that, and then the design, it just didn't carry the weight. So all that shape and then getting away from the protection. And then I love the bows in it, and the curves, and it looks like it's a bat symbol that's about to burst, to me. And that kind of fits our character, Bruce. The costume, Bruce, my Batman will grow and evolve as I get more comfortable drawing this massive guy. The favorite parts are probably what the cape can do. His ears are detachable. Every part. It's just coming up with new things and new elements. I mean, I'm having a blast with all of it. When you see Bruce, he's a big dude, and he's always in his gear. He doesn't have to have a secret identity, really, because he's a nobody in our book. No one's going to be looking for this guy. But the way he carries himself, I think it's so believable when you see our Bruce. He's not the flamboyant playboy at all, and he looks like he would just fit right in and live among us. Still commenting on the costume, Dragotta said, "He's very do-it-yourself, or he's a problem solver. He's an engineer, an architect, he's a city engineer. He's constantly solving problems." So I felt like, rather than the utility belt, it would be the utility cowl or the utility uniform. Every part of it will be usable and do something. And that was really fun. With these statements from the artist, I confess I'm excited to see all this work, especially since the stories will embrace elements of science fiction and engineering. But the surprises don't stop there. Nick Dragotta also brought more news involving the Batmobile. According to the artist, we will see the iconic vehicle of the Dark Knight in issue 2 of Absolute Batman, and when asked about Alfred's appearance being similar to Ra's al Ghul, Dragata revealed that both characters will have no relation in the comic, although the details in their hair are similar. Scott Snyder also shared his thoughts on how it was to work on this project and what his version of Bruce Wayne in his rogues gallery is like. Snyder said, "It feels like this creative fever dream, you know? It's just pure. That's the word I keep coming back to with this Batman. Just the core concept of him. It's not just like Batman, poor, villains, rich. What does Batman stand for? If he in the main universe is this kind of guy who holds things together, and he is order and he is the system, and his villains are chaos and anarchy, then here he's that small bit of chaos and anarchy, and his villains are sort of entrenched. His villains are this kind of giant, immovable things. We tried to just break it down to the simplest thing where, what is Batman? And all he is like a boy who has this horrible thing happen to him, this trauma. And instead of kind of being hopeless, he's the opposite. He's determined to make the world better. He believes he can do it against all odds. And he dedicates every moment and every cell in his body to making that happen. And everything else is flexible. And so it became this complete reinvention where from the villains to the city to the Batmobile, everything was sort of born of that same ethos, that kind of inversion. He grows up in Crime Alley. He's friends with Eddie Nigma and Ozzy Cobblepot, as well as Waylon and Selina. It's truly unusual that Bruce is childhood friends with several villains, but regarding this, we will have to wait for the issues to come out to check everything out and draw our conclusions. When asked if we will see a Robin appearance or another well-known character from the Batman's gallery, Scott Snyder and Nick Dragata said, respectively, "Oh, you'll see all of them. They're Easter eggs, and they'll be fun for all kinds of people." In issue 1 alone, you hear about Oswald and Harvey Dent and Waylon, Killer Croc. You hear about Selina. Every character has a place in this book. There isn't any that we're shying away from. Dragata added, "You're gonna see Jim Gordon. Barbara. There's a huge cast." Additionally, as a curiosity, Snyder was asked if he had to improve his engineering knowledge to write Absolute Batman. The writer stated, "Yes. Now I have to research everything. But it's fun." As an engineer, he's a builder, and he built Batman. In the first issue, you see, one of the first things he did as a kid was an engineering project based on a bat's wing. You get to learn secondary subjects when you write Batman. You can check out these interviews in full on the websites mentioned at the beginning of the video. In my opinion, we can see an interesting construction of the Batman figure. His psyche and violence will undoubtedly be hot topics in the upcoming issues, and I am eager to see it. Now, speaking of the biggest controversies circulating on the internet in recent days, in the preview released, Batman's axe is not cordless, it is very sharp, and in one panel, we see Batman severing the hand of one of Black Mask's henchmen. Snyder recently commented that this Batman would still have his moral code of not killing, and I discussed this in the previous video on this topic here on the channel. However, looking at this preview, it seems Batman will be very close to breaking his moral rule, showing himself to be much more intense than the Batman in the usual timeline, even being more extreme than Frank Miller's Batman. So we can certainly expect even more controversies surrounding Absolute Batman. On top of all that, I like the detail that everything in his costume is functional. I found that quite fascinating, and indeed, a word that was heavily emphasized in the interviews was functionality. So Absolute Batman is set to make a strong impact in October, and I feel it will be successful in sales. With 13 issues already scheduled, just over a year, Absolute Batman will start being released on October 9th, 2024. To learn more about Batman and his entire mythology and comics, use our commission links and purchase Batman comics, DC, Marvel, or even any kind of purchase. This way, you support our work without paying anything extra for it. Thank you very much for all the support you give us. Now I want to know your opinion. Did you like the statements from Scott Snyder and Nick Dragata? Are you excited to read Absolute Batman? Or do you believe it will be a terrible story? Write your opinion in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications so that you don't miss anything about Batman and DC. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.